Namaskaram and a very good morning to everybody present here. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Trinity Arts Festival, Apoorva, and the committee members for having me as a part of Navadisha. To begin, I share my thoughts on the aims of Indian art based on my experience, discussions with colleagues, and references. The wisdom of our lands is infinite and inexhaustible. But to this wisdom, the way of access is not through intellectual activity alone, but through revelation. And this becomes the inspiration of the poet, vision of an artist, and imagination of a philosopher. Ideally, art is a discovery than a creation. A true artist does not think out of imagery, but sees it, or hears it, or feels it and experiences it. Art should transcend time and space. And as Muthiah said, content is something that helps us to this. The purpose is to present or represent something more than the mundane through our art. Therefore, art becomes the path to spiritual progress. In order than the form of an image may be brought fully and clearly, the mind, the dancer should meditate, and his success will be in proportion to his meditation. Only seeing the object itself will not achieve this purpose. Through our dance, mere representation is never the aim, but it is about representing the essence that resonates to you, which you experience while observing the subject through your five senses. What is essential is to suggest the idea of the subject, or is to manifest what lies behind and not to give exact details. That is why it is art and not just presentation of fact or information. I personally feel that now we are all unconsciously or consciously seeking for something to recognize from a work of art. If it fails to satisfy that, then it is condemned. However, this attitude is not evident when it comes to cinema, for instance. Hence, the question I'm unable to find a convincing answer for is, why so in dance we do not have this acceptance? Something to ponder about. Traditions are significant since they represent a race rather than the ideas of one artist or of a single period. And doing away with tradition and expecting art to survive is like removing the tree from the roots and expecting fruits from the branches of the uprooted tree. Coming to the point of technical perfection, we continuously train our instrument, which is our body, relentlessly through rigorous adabus as well as yoga, kalari, pilates, etc. so that we can speak the language with more ease. And once this intention is realized, then technique becomes the means and not the end. Otherwise, over time, perfection is attained, and in turn, inspiration declines. And this makes us wonder if the ideologies of dance and our practices are aligned or not. It is a question to think when a dancer needs to let go of technique. Both are desirable, but it is tough to decide which one is important over the other, whether it is technical perfection alone or inspiration. As a representative of the many young dancers present here, I wish to pose this question to everybody. How and when does the path of technique shift to the path of inspiration? If we look at one of the core principles of theory of art in India, that is, art presents the sense of something and does not imitate, then as performers, how do we go about finding that sense? When we say time flies, it's a sense. We don't necessarily show a clock with wings and depict flying, right? In dance, we show it through recurring seasons, in succession with amazing speed, or we show the growth of a child to a young girl who's ready to marry, or we show a seed growing into a tree, and many more. All metamorphoses that can bring out the sense of time flies. Now, how do we bring on stage or in our choreography or composing or the visual representation of this sense? Does one have a comprehensive guide that limits the idea or sense? Here is where imagination comes into existence, and I believe imagination cannot happen without knowledge, be it exposure and self-experience or from others. An artist is to be open, in the sense, use the five senses, keep the mind open, be greedy to not leave one stone unturned, to be curiously satisfying to know everything. And once you have that thirst for jigyasa, the tools for exploration are endless. While exploring through these ways, we need to be cautious about mere accumulation of information. And from my personal experience and that of my colleagues and senior artists, I think the first step is revelation. When, as a dancer, we take up a concept, the research should not only be to discover what others have said about it, but through what others have said, what does that reveal to my innermost conscience? Second, conviction. When that revelation of what I'm searching and researching happens, then I need to convince myself of what has been discovered. Thirdly, meditation. After I have been convinced of my discoveries, I need to literally meditate upon it consciously and subconsciously by thought, word, and action. Literally breathing in and out, which means before I decide how to portray it, I need to get a vision that what has been imbibed has actually been identified within. If yes, then I'm happy to adapt it to portray. I need to practice it, which is nothing but my meditation. Preach what you practice. Lastly, elevation. This whole exercise is worthwhile when it elevates me from where I was on my journey of dance, and through me, the audience also should be elevated to where they could be. But how many dancers understand this? They just act bhakti and say we attain spirituality, and the final goal is that. I also feel spiritual pursuit is something that cleanses oneself, thus to be of good use to yourself as well as to others through the practice of one's art. And this paves the way to see God in every being around us and in every situation. My further discussions on this topic arose a question. What are the reasons why we are not valuing our dance? And my reasoning was wanting to be accepted and liked by everybody, expecting materialistic profit through dance, attaching an economical value to the art, in the sense like a business. And businesses would have profit and loss. And dancers tend to blame the art if they incur loss. And I feel this is what makes dance in the long run a non-viable profession for many youngsters. Thus, it has become more a performance art and not an art of life, and therefore no healthy competition with our own selves but with others. And this makes the pursuit less mindful. If you have noticed, it is the culture comprising of art and architecture that is highlighted when it comes to introducing a country. And this makes it important to resurrect the knowledge systems of the past. I feel trying to resurrect these knowledge systems and dance traditions of the past is a battle of conflicts and variables. As a community of artists, we all need to come together and put thought to what we can do individually and as a collective to bring back the bygone knowledge systems of the past, and not just the dance style, though it could be the first step to it. The knowledge system of the dancers in the past was based on the education system that existed then. For instance, the 64 kalas that one would learn and later specialize in one. Now times have changed, and due to the change in human needs, which is fine since change is inevitable, but the need to revive these knowledge systems for those learning the dance or the arts is essential and the need of the hour. Otherwise, only puppets and clones are created and not thinking artists. As per my limited knowledge and awareness, I think there is no dedicated institute or an organization or a representation and supporting for the sustenance of individual works that's being undertaken for reviving these knowledge systems. And this is where I feel art conservatories could be a solution, because conservatories are free-spirited. It is like a lab, unlike universities which have a lot of guidelines and rules, making them limited to an extent. Appointing a scholar in a university has many protocols and requirements, whereas in an art conservatory, these would not be required. And I feel knowledge, experience, and the artist's persona would be the prerequisites for being employed in a conservatory of this nature. And creating art conservatories would help in creating jobs for people involved in these kind of research and investigation. And this would also multiply the studies of this nature in time. Instead of just having one person do everything, we could engage more researchers under a senior guide or mentor. And this way, the quality bar would be raised and the formalities can be standardized. And finally, this way, the values attached to art would be alive, like aesthetics beyond beauty, excellence over success, attitude over altitude, and that art presides over the artist. I thus conclude my talk with the hope that we continue to find a balance between these ideologies and our practice, both individually and as a collective. Thank you.